The ego, the shadow, the lower voice. You must understand what it looks like, what it smells like, how it likes to show up, what its behaviors are. Evolutionary speaking, the ego was there designed for us to make us feel so important that we would need to want to cherish our life so much that we would do whatever it took to survive, right? So that they could, go and fornicate and produce more human beings and so on and so forth. So that's what it's for. What's happened is that, it's been taken to the extreme now that we think we're so important that we now get stuck up there, right? There's narcissists. I'll have to make another video about it, but we become so focused on who we are and what we think and all that kind of thing that it actually paralyzes us. It paralyzes us because you can go to the shadow side and think you're so important that you become egotistical. You're going to know that already, but the quieter side of that is that when it starts to doubt itself and when it starts to talk you out of doing things, and because it is naturally lazy also. And the reason why it's quite lazy is because we didn't always have supermarkets and food available, so it likes to preserve energy where it can. So that laziness transfers into laziness today, where we need to be doing things that make us better. We need to do things that make us more productive. But we come up with bullshit excuses and stories of why we shouldn't do things. And it paralyzes us. You see what I mean? So the ego is, it's a very fine line where there is benefits. I'm going to get to them. Don't you worry about that. But we need to be sure that we know that the stories and excuses and even the bashing, self-bashing that people have, and I was there for a long time, you beat yourself up. It's important to realize that the voices in your head is just a thought, and it's just not even who you are. It's just the mind giving you bullshit. Sometimes it's good, but most of the time it's defecating and lazy and just not serving us to our highest standards. So we've got to be really careful to not get stuck in our heads, A, and B, to never believe first on instinct what goes on in our head. That's the hardest thing. Just because you got a thought doesn't mean it's true, right? So that takes self-awareness. It takes focus and concentration, all the stuff I've talked about before. So hopefully this video will enlighten you into not believing what you think. That's the number one. And that what its purpose is just for preservation, but it also likes to be lazy, and it'll come up with the most convincing stories to stop you from doing things you should be doing. That you have to be aware of that also. Now, in my experience, I've found there to be one really good benefit to having the ego, and I find it to be one where if you're in control of it and you're acting out of the soul, not out of the ego, so you're not really in your head much, then you can use it for actually becoming the best version of yourself, because then you can want to be the best at your chosen field, or want to be the best in whatever your goal is, because that's all ego, right? I'll give you mine, for example. I want these videos to be the best videos that they can be, and that is all ego, right? But there's a lot of benefit to that, obviously. So there's a fine line there, but that's all I found the ego to be good for, is to really bring the best out of you once you know who's in control and when it's not in control. Because like we said, when it's in control, you're just going to be, bumping into stop signs your whole life, because, it thinks it knows what's going on, but as you probably know, it's not as, it doesn't navigate through life as good as the soul does.